Hi guys, welcome to Cafe IO. Cafe IO में आपका स्वागत है. In this video, we will talk about data mesh. If you have been working in the data space, you must be familiar with terms like data lake, data warehouses, databases. And if you're specifically into analytics, you would have dealt with a lot of data and different kinds of data challenges. If you have been a consumer of data, these problems would have been furthermore. Depending on what kind of work you have had in your software development experience or analytics experience, would have been most likely an asset which you would have had to deal with, and you would have your own experience in dealing with different architectures, design, and standardizations. Data mesh is a modern evolution on the whole journey that data storage and data architectures are taking. So in good old days, we had databases, then we had data marts, then we had data warehouses, then we moved to data lake. And then mesh architecture is something which is gaining a lot of popularity as time progresses. So in this video, I want to take a moment to distill the challenges and also talk about data mesh architecture in a little more detail. I'm effectively using a very nice resource which I stumbled upon. It's a website called datamesharchitecture.com. Really amazing. It's very rare that you see a very specialized website like this and that answers all the boxes. So this will help us in understanding why do we need it, what is data mesh, and how can we build on top of it, what are the technical specifications, what are the tech stacks, and how do you really start. So it's a wholesome tool. I am not paid or anything like this by these guys, so that's a disclaimer. I just found it and thought it would be a good starting point to share. Let's deep dive. So let's take a look at this diagram that I have on the screen. Now this talks about a central data team, which you must have heard about. Data lake is a very popular concept, or a single team. And what happens with this team is you have different consumers of the data. These could be domain teams, multiple domains teams, right? Customer teams, marketing team, sales team, analytics team, or maybe, I don't know, supply chain team, different depending on the type of enterprise you have, and different kind of domains team would exist. And then you would have some cross-functional teams like finance team, HR teams, and stuff like that. And they would also want to work with data in their own way, etc. Now, one of the challenges that you have with this kind of design is that inherently the team becomes a bottleneck, and it's very difficult after a few quick wins. When you work with data lake architecture, it's very difficult to get a good quality distilled reporting and good quality question and answers that you expect from your analytics store. If you take a look at this interesting piece of checkpoint, if we draw parallels from software development to data analytics, and I think that's a very common comparison, right? We take parallels from software development because it has been there for longer, and the best practices, it has seen these life cycles. So there has been decentralization of domains and businesses. There has been decentralization of different engineering teams into specialized teams called product teams and stuff like that. Operations have been broken down into DevOps and SRE and chaos engineering teams and whatnot. And also from a technology standpoint and design standpoint, monoliths have been broken down into microservices, or let's say smaller systems, if not only microservices. By the way, I've done a very exhaustive video and a couple of them around this topic. Do check that out. I'll link somewhere above. Now, when we want to scale up data analytics, decentralizing data lake into mesh is what is being seen as a good natural evolution. And that's the why. As to why do you need a data mesh? There is a very nice challenge. There's a massive problem that starts when you get into a centralized management of data, and you're trying to answer domain specific questions in a certain time, and your central data teams are not able to. So that's the challenge that we are facing. And this is a very good line, right? Which is, with the eventual growth of the organization, the situation of the domain teams and central data teams become much worse. And the way out of this is to move to a domain oriented decentralization of data, which is what mesh architecture talks about. Let's allude into what is mesh really, and let's talk about mesh probably to what is data mesh. So there's four pillars, or we could call as principles of data mesh. The first is domain ownership, which talks about a very well bounded context about the domain and a definition of what's the operational and analytical data. There's three pillars: there's strategic domain driven design, socio-technical perspective, and the technology layer. That's how this diagram is structured. Then the evolution of that is data as a product. When you have domain ownership, you also need to understand and think about, how your data teams are managing the different views of the data. But you also need to be aware that there are more consumers outside of the domain. While the domain team is responsible for satisfying the need of other domains, the customers are effectively the ones who are trying to ask the question. And these could be different teams who are trying to, join with their data, who are trying to derive insights, who are trying to do AI ML on your data, and a lot of different stuff. And then the responsibility of these domain teams become that they manage the data contracts, they manage the APIs, and we'll talk about contracts in a moment. So that's what it is. The next principle is self-serve, and self-serve is to the idea that you shouldn't be limiting access in a way that is inhibitive. All data or most other teams should be able to have a way to access the data irrespective of the domain they have and the tools and the system you have. So there should be some sort of a self-serve data platform where people can come in, create different data products, pull different sources and stuff like that. And then on top of this, right, you need to have some sort of governance, which is a very federated governance. And the idea is, with this high degree of interoperability, you are still trying to achieve standardization and you're promoting the whole idea of a decentralized setup, but there's still governance there. It doesn't mean that there's no governance. So you would want to have different governance group, you'll want to have context mapping, want to have schema adherences, you'll want to have policy automations, these can be enabled by different tools as well, but this is what the principle talks about. It's not a very old term, probably a few years back, I think coined by this gentleman in 2019, and I think Martin Fowler's is being referenced here. And this is this lady is in ThoughtWorks, if I remember. Yes, she's in ThoughtWorks, and she has talked about data mesh principles and logical architecture. Very interesting read. I don't want to hop links, but this is a very interesting link, and the way she has described data mesh is really truly beautiful. And most importantly, I love the sketches that she has come up with. Very good watercolor schemes. I love our aesthetically pleasing diagrams, and this is probably a very good read as well. Now, how do we design a data mesh? And that's probably the question that everybody would want to answer and everybody want to understand. Now, if you think about this picture is really nicely maintained. I would probably start with the base because that's the picture that most of my consumers on the video would understand, probably from a technology perspective. So you would need a platform which enables a lot of different capabilities. This can be a self-serve data platform. It can also be a tool or a combination of couple of tools, and essentially a collective grouping of that can be called as the data platform. It doesn't imply that there's one single tool or anything. Now, there's a storage and query engine, there's data product catalog, there's contract management, there's monitoring, there's policy automation. There can be probably couple of more things. For example, observability would be a good thing to have here. There could be certain alerting mechanisms around here. There could be standard and compliance control that can be part of it. There can be self automated updates and those kind of features available in the data product catalog. This is probably a sub feature of the catalog and stuff like that. On the right hand side, you have the enabling team, which is consulting, providing example, best practices. On top, you have the governance group, which is doing the policies, which is doing the security review, compliance review, privacy reviews, adherence to enterprise standards, alignment with other groups within the organization. Like you might have, cloud-based setup, and you have certain governance structures for cloud. And so basically that's the usual meaning of what we understand as governance. And then in the center, you have a whole domain where you have data products, you have operational data, you have data contracts, you have the domain team. You are extracting analytics on top of it, and that's being fed to data product. And this is further used by a domain of a different data product. Now, this is probably just think of it like a reference data that goes to some other domain. So I would think of it that if you are in a marketing team and you are in sales team, and then there's a customer team, what could be happening is customer analytics, marketing analytics might be pulled into customer team, and then they might want to do some joins, and they might want to come up with some promotions. But if it's other way around, you want to do effective marketing, they could be pulling, customer related information and stuff like that. It don't be tied to the example that I'm giving. It could be, it's largely based on the way your organization has set up different domains, and each company has their own way. Yes, there are standards probably when we talk of larger business domains like retail, finance, manufacturing, and stuff like that. But this talks about a domain in the context of within the organization. So think of it as different smaller business teams. And then this website goes into doing a lot of definitions. I'm not going to get into all of them because the video is already past 10 minutes. Talks about data product, what it needs to have, really good example and complete picture as to what does a data product look like. Very nice structure. Then data contract, and this is a very popular term, but very few people are using it. Think of these like as an API specification, like you have Open API spec that is used for documenting APIs, YAML. I think they are called Swagger also in some places, probably from the way it started with Java and stuff like that. Data contract is something similar. It's a structure, it's a document which elaborates on the format, specifics, semantics, terminology, how does the data should be represented, how should the producer define it, provider define it, and how can a consumer consume it. Covers every aspect, as I just said, terms and conditions, schema, quality attributes, service level stuff like availability and support times, etc. Even down to something like a port number availability, billing details, blah, 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 everything. Then talks about a federated governance, or the different kind of transformations you can achieve between entities, external data, internal data, and stuff like that. How do you ingest? Interesting operational versus analytical. I think most organizations have these well defined. How do you structure clean data, and how do you lay the principles and foundations of it? Very good read. How do you do analytics on top of it, and eventually leading to the platform itself, which is the fundamental base. Now that's what this website is, just on the front page. I think I've covered few of these. Yeah, okay, no, sorry. There's some of these are separate pages as well. I'm not probably gonna go in there. Talks about doing and achieving these with different technologies, like you have Google, AWS, Azure, DBT, Snowflake, Databricks, Minio, etc., etc. It gets into technology specific architecture as well. Probably will do a deeper video if there's a demand. Please put in comments if you would want that. All right. And then there was one interesting link which I would want to share. Yes, data product canvas and data mesh canvas. So both of these are just empty templates. We had, if you have been to MBA, I have not. Business model canvas is a very popular thing, but this is more of a canvas for how to do your data product. Really nice way to structure and imagine how you would want to see a data product in your organization. And similarly, you have designing a data mesh canvas. It's largely empty. It's mostly semantic driven, logic driven. So you will have to get slightly, I would say, abstract here when you try to define it, but it's like enterprise architecture modeling. All right. So yeah, That's what I wanted to talk about in today's video. If you have liked the conversation, put a thumbs up, put in subscribe. And with that, Akash signing off. Bye-bye.